So now I've done all the slides. I've put slide grease on all of them. Also, when you're taking your valves, your slides out, make sure if the valves are in there, put them all the way down, because this is under pressure and it could start to warp the horn if you don't hold the valves down and release the pressure. So I'll show you how much oil I put on the valves or the slides after I grease them up. That's really not a lot. Barely see it. Tiny drop. I'm not putting much on at all. And you hear that sound, that's because I didn't put the plastic thing back on. These little tiny rubber bands go right where they meet on right there, right there, and right there, so that doesn't happen, because when you're playing and you've got to kick out a slide and put it back, that's going to be distracting when you play. So now to do the valves, a lot of people think you should really oil your valves, but if you use this, really if you're using any valve oil, you really don't want to use a whole lot. And what you do is, and this is the way you should do it when you're just regularly oiling your valves. But for right now, since we cleaned it, it's completely dry. One drop on the top and bottom, just like that. And then with the this is the third, so I'm going to put in the third valve slide. Back and forth, just like that. Get the whole case lubricated. Let's see how it goes. Pretty good. So sometimes when, this is another word about general maintenance, if you decide not just to clean your horn, but you just need to oil your valves because they're a little sluggish, number one, just unscrew it. Sometimes air gets trapped or the oil is not around the whole casing, so what you can do is just pull it out and turn it around a little bit and get the oil lubricated back in the casing. And it's 9 times out of 10, that's what happens when people think they need oil. It's really just you've got enough oil, it's just not around the whole casing, so you can do that. Also, when you're actually going to oil, that doesn't work and you just need to oil your valve, what I recommend doing is take the whole thing out, take a clean cloth, get everything off of it, and even go through your valve casing. Because when you change oil in your car, you can't just add oil, you have to take all the oil out, because that oil is going to be dirty, and this is going to be too. You're playing a horn, and this is why you clean it too. This is why there's so much stuff in it, because you're eating sugary foods, you're eating things, and you've got things coming out of your mouth when you play the horn. That's what's getting caught in here. That's sugar is really bad for your horn. If you can, wash your mouth out or brush your teeth before you play, that's the best thing you can do. Even if you're playing outside for marching band, that's going to get dirt in your horn too. Even when you have a clean mouth or whatever, you can still, just the contaminants and the particulates in the air, when you've got humidity in your horn from playing, the condensation builds up and it gets the crud and it starts to get caught, and when that dries, it can get really hard, and that's what you're seeing when you pull it out of the horn in your bathtub. So you're going to completely strip the casing and the valve of oil, and you're going to do what I just did. Put a drop on the bottom, drop on top, circle it around the valve casing a few times, and that should pretty much remedy the problem. The other things, if you're having sluggish valves, don't do this very much. You don't want to do it very often, but you can take this part off, the very top, where the spring is. You can take the spring out. You never want to oil the spring, but what you can do is gently stretch it out just a little bit. Now give it a little bit more response when you're pushing it down. But don't do that very often. If you stretch it out too much, you'll have to get new springs. Sometimes trumpets come with springs in the bottom. Sometimes the older horns or just different models will have it instead of at the top. They'll have it at the bottom. When you're washing your horn, and if you've got one like that, just take the spring out. Don't worry about washing that. Just do the same thing that I did, just the unfinished part of the valve. And so I'm going to finish applying the oil to my valves, and I'm going to next publish a video on how to polish the horn for silver trumpets. For brass, if you make sure that the lacquer is brass, you can get the same Wright's polish makes a Wright's brass polish, and I've never used it, but I'm pretty sure you can do the same thing. But I use a Wright's silver polish for polishing my horn, and I'll show you how to do that. Another word for cleaning and maintaining your horn: you should probably never wash your horn right before a performance. I've got a performance tomorrow in a few hours actually, and it's really not smart to do this, but I just decided to do it because it's been a little while. But the horn's going to play differently. You're going to get a little bit more or less resistant depending on how dirty your horn is. If you don't oil or lubricate your slides or valves correctly, it might not perform correctly when you're doing it, and you won't have a lot of time to fix it, remedy the problem. So don't do it right before performance, just in case you have to make repairs. So that's pretty much how to clean your horn. The next thing I'm going to do is the polishing. And when you polish, you might want to just leave the horn apart, because it's easier to get to everything. Like some of these slides in here is a little tough to get to if it's put together. So I'll make that video next.